In this video, I'm going to walk you through my design process. I'm going to show you how I go from idea to drawing on my iPad to playing around in Sketch for some higher quality designs, and then how that goes all the way into the app to where I change stuff in the app. And I get asked all the time about how I learned design, how, my process, and I don't claim to be a professional designer. I think I'm good at it, but by no means a professional. But, if you're a developer looking to improve your designs, I think this video is going to be very valuable to you. So my first step is usually on a site like Dribbble. So when I came up with the idea for DubDubGrub, I knew there was going to be a map and location and all that stuff. So what I do here is I go to Dribbble, which is a design site if you're not familiar with it. By the way, it's Dribbble with 3 B's, just to avoid any confusion. You might have to create an account, so I am signed in. But what I do in the search field is I'll do something like mobile map, because this is like website and mobile. So you want to specify mobile if you're building an app. So I do that, and then you just get all kinds of ideas. And I literally just come in here, and anything with a map, like I click on this, I'm like, okay, cool. So there's a map, a little slide up card. That's an idea. And what I do is I scroll through here, like, oh, here's a map. Okay, so I just scroll through here, get a bunch of ideas. And what I do is if I see something I like we'll scroll down a bit. I know there's some familiar map stuff here. Yeah, so if I see something I like, like this one stuck out to me with like the slide up card, you'll see the evolution of my design with the slide up card. But what I'll do is I'll, do the whole Command-Shift-4, take a screenshot, not of the whole screen. I'll do like a little cutout, and then I'll put those screenshots into a folder. And I'll do this for about a half hour, where I just scroll through, right? Click on things, get some ideas that have to do with maps, right? Here's another one. So I scroll through here, get the ideas, and then once I've done that for about a half hour, I got a lot of screenshots. That's when I kind of shift over to drawing out my idea on the iPad. And I go through that folder of screenshots, just kind of look through all the pictures. Again, just get ideas, brainstorm. You take a little bit from this screenshot, you take a little bit from that screenshot, right? And then you combine that into your own idea. So after I've gone through Dribbble and done all that, now I have a pretty good idea in my head of what at least I think the app is going to look like. So then I go to my iPad and start drawing. Now the iPad app I use is called GoodNotes. I think it's like $5. I don't know, well worth it. I use it for all my sketches, but I'm like holding it right here. But you can see on the screen here that the point of my sketches is for me to just get the ideas in my head down on paper. But you see the point here isn't to be like super neat. Like you can see it's just a bunch of like scribbles. And then like in the bottom middle, like for my profile, I literally just wrote the word form, right? I didn't draw out the form, right? It was going to be a standard, Swift UI form. But you can kind of see how I had the idea for the slide up card and then map, right? Top left, I just wrote map. I'm not going to draw a map. But again, you can kind of see the product start to come together where I have like the location cells. With the name, I knew I wanted the little, circles for the avatars, and then the detail screen, right? I wanted to be able to check in. I knew I wanted like a Clubhouse type grid of faces at the bottom. That's kind of where that inspiration came from. And then my little, down in the bottom left, I knew the little modal that I wanted to build. So the whole point of this iPad sketch phase is to just get the ideas and get the structure of the app. I'm not worried about details. I just want to get the structure of the app down on paper because I'm going to use this to build the next step, which is my sketch designs. So here we are in Sketch. Now Sketch is a paid Mac app. I think it's like $100 a year. So I've just been a Sketch user for literally 5 years. It's what I know. It's worked great. I'm happy with the product. There is a free one called Figma. I've never used it, but I hear that's good and it's free. So whether you're using Figma or Sketch, it's fine. But some design product is now where I come in and I take those iPad drawings and start bringing them to life. But the caveat here is that, yes, while these look nice and neat, I know in my head that I'm just trying to take the next step because I know once I start developing, like I'm going to change this, I'm going to tweak this. So the idea here is to give me a baseline to start coding and start building. But you see the app start to come to life a little bit. And I'm going to show you the evolution of my ideas here. So like I said, I really like that slide up card concept. As you can see here on the left screen, I had my map, which is my generic map balloons, and I didn't have a tab bar. I wanted to go away from the typical tab bar setup right on the bottom. So that was the initial idea. So I had my little profile icon up at the top that you could tap to get to your profile. This card would slide up, as you see on the top middle screen, to be the list of all the restaurants. Then you could scroll, and then you could swipe that card back down. And the idea here was like, if you tapped on one of these little balloons or the map annotation, this one would change to whatever you tapped on. So this is where I ran into issues and kind of went away from the slide up card because it just proved to be technically convoluted. And a fine line I have to walk in these courses, right? Like, yes, you can pretty much make anything work in programming, but, you know, especially in Swift UI, maybe you have to do like a hacky workaround. Maybe you have to dive into UIKit and build some custom stuff. Like, so once you start going down that path though, that becomes very convoluted and confusing for those that are just learning, right? People taking my courses are typically beginner or at least a beginner in Swift UI. So while yes, I could make it work and maybe it makes for a cooler product, it doesn't make for a good, like, teachable solution, right? Because I don't want to teach hacky workarounds in my courses. So that's what happened with the slide up card. I do think it's a cool idea. I do think it looks cool. It ended up just not being a very good teachable solution. So you'll see I moved away from that. The detail screen kind of looks very similar. I had square buttons rather than circles. You can see I have a lot of like squares, and I eventually moved to a more circle focused thing. And then you can see my initial take on my pop-up, which is basically the same, like that hasn't changed. And then you can see the profile screen was a form. Now it is not a form. That actually happened during the beta where I decided to completely redesign the profile screen. But I'm gonna move over to the right here and show you kind of like my next step. So you can see I still have the slide up card for the who's here. I got rid of it on the detail screen, but you notice this isn't on the final design. I decided to just move away from this bottom card. I felt it was cleaner to just have the map pane annotations. And then I decided to put the badges on the annotations to show you how many people were there. I thought that was a good compromise. So, and you can see now I moved to the tab bar. So again, the whole point, without getting too into the weeds here, is I want to show you the evolution of the idea. And this happened in Sketch, because why I went away from the slide up card here and to the tab bar was, you know, while I was staring at these. Because what I do, when I'm designing these and I'm staring at these, I'm kind of like thinking about how I'm going to build it in my head. So I was starting to think about this slide up card, and then I thought about, okay, when I tap on a button, I need the first item in the array to switch to this. And then, so I'd be doing a lot of array manipulation, and I still needed it to slide up. And then it also needed to be inside a navigation view. So when I tapped it, I could go to the detail view and then back. And then what happens when they slide the card? It's just, it turned into be much of a headache. But the point is, I discovered those headaches staring at this design, not building it, and kind of like building it in my head. So that's the main takeaway here, in my opinion. If you do these designs, start building it in your head, and you'll hopefully discover. So that's, again, why I shifted to the tab bar. The design is basically the same, except I switched to the tab bar. So that's the sketch phase. But before we move on to like the final app and showing you that, and I'll kind of put them side by side, this sketch file is what I use for like all my assets. So basically how I went and got all my assets for the restaurants, right? I have a square one and a banner one. And I do this in Sketch because this way I know I have consistent sizing, right? Because if I'm plugging in different images, I don't want to get random image dimensions, you know, off the internet. I want to make sure they're all consistent sizing, so when I plug them in, they look good. So that's what I did. You know, I just went on the internet, you know, found the restaurants, got some pictures of the restaurants, you know, decided on a square image, decided on a banner image. And you can see like these images are like actually bigger, like if I move these up and down, right? Like, and I would, you know, kind of like crop it to the look I wanted. So that is how I got like my assets. And then over here, in case you're curious, this may look familiar. So again, even like the color scheme changed, right? I was going with this kind of Miami Dolphins look, right? Teal and peach or whatever you want to call it. But actually after looking at the peach thing, and I'll put up a screenshot here. So the map annotations used to be this peach color, and I liked it at first, especially against dark mode. But after staring at it for a while, I just really started to hate it. And then I kind of experimented with this kind of like pink color. It is system pink, literally, in iOS. And that's when I really started to like that look. And that's kind of where you get this. Maybe you saw this on Twitter, kind of like my little promo that I made here, where I got all the iPhones and put them on here. That's kind of where I got this look and feel. And I really like this one, especially on dark mode. And then a lot of people ask how I did this neon sign. There's literally, I just went and bought a font. I think it was like $20. And I know not everybody wants to spend money, but if you're building like a serious app you hope to make money off of, you know, spend money on a font if you want. But so, yeah, so it's just a font. And then I made the font white. I gave it a teal outline. If we zoom in here. So the font has like a border, you know, you can put border around text. And then I just gave it a teal shadow to make it kind of look like it was glowing. So I don't know. That's real quick how I did the neon lights. And then especially when you put it up against a dark background, really looks like it's glowing there. So This little sketch file and this what's new screen, this is what I used as the basis for the onboarding screen that you see here. This is the typical Apple what's new, but I had this up to like reference as I was building that screen. But yeah, in my projects, I always have a sketch file where I have like any assets. Oh, and you can see here, these are like the placeholder assets, right? There's the avatar placeholder. And then if there is no image, like if the image returns nil, from the server's wrong, I have these default assets to show there so it looks good. And again, you can see my exploration of the colors. But that is kind of how I handle this sketch file. And now I put up I'm going to kind of zoom into the sketch here, because I'm going to put this like side by side. You can see how this sketch file goes to the final project. And initially I did kind of build it close to looking like this sketch file. For example, the detail screen looked pretty much like this with the square buttons. And then I moved it to the rounded buttons. And then instead of having multicolored, I just made it all the same color because I thought that looked cleaner and nicer. So it's that kind of stuff that changes over the course of the design. And again, I got rid of this bottom card on the main screen because I felt just having a map there made it look cleaner. And like I said, the profile screen, I did have a form, but when I put the app out to my beta testers, they felt like the form was confusing, at least the way I built it. So I decided to just completely get rid of the form altogether and go with this kind of custom profile design. And you see, back to the sketch, I didn't sketch that out first. I literally had an idea for what it should look like in my head and just went right into SwiftUI and started building it in SwiftUI. There was no pre-design on this profile screen. That was just straight off the dome. So that's what's great about SwiftUI though. It is pretty easy to prototype UI. And that's why I don't go pixel perfect in my designs first. I feel like that's a waste of time. Just give me a starting point and then get me into the app, and then I will start to play with it in the app. So I would say the bulk of the design stuff happens in the app, to be honest with you, because there's all kinds of tweaks. So again, that's the process, going from idea, searching on Dribbble, to drawing on my iPad, to laying it out in Sketch and experimenting there and starting to build it in my head and think about it. And then I use that as the basis to build the app, and then inevitably there's tons of tweaks that happen in the app. Now, of course, this only works like if you're the indie developer or you're just building your own project. If you're at a large company, you have professional designers that just hand you a design spec and you build that design spec, right? There's not much thought that goes into that. But again, if you're building your own products, hopefully my design process helped. Again, I don't claim to be a pro. I'm not saying this is the only way. So take any ideas you liked, leave the ideas you don't, and start building your own design process.